First, the base pay for federal MPs will jump by $45,000 next year as some existing perks are scrapped. The independent wage umpire says the increase is long overdue, and when it takes effect, the salary of a backbencher will rise to $185,000. Political editor Heather Hewitt reports.
They work long hours, often late into the night. They spend several weeks of the year away from home. Most of them work hard trying to represent us. Yet, as professions go, politicians have one of the least respected jobs in the country. The Remuneration Tribunal has decided it's time they at least get more financial recognition.
The Tribunal considers that parliamentary base salary should be set at $185,000 per annum.
That's an increase of $45,000 or 30%, and this is the rationale.
We've concluded that it was important to have a level of remuneration sufficient to attract and retain people from all walks of life to serve in the Parliament.
Do you think being an MP is a 24-hour-a-day job?
It's more than that. It's 24/7, 52. It's more than a full-time job. And there are more than one jobs in being a Member of Parliament.
For the Prime Minister, the recommendations mean her pay packet will jump to $481,000, up from $367,000. A move welcomed as long overdue by most, though not all, of her parliamentary colleagues.
I think as a nation, given what captains of industry get in their pay packets and given what's being proposed for the Prime Minister, I think any Prime Minister of this country deserves that level of pay. Otherwise, I think you diminish the value and role of the office.
Here we have the big party politicians washing their hands of their responsibility for a huge pay rise at a time the government is cutting public service jobs so that the budget can stay in the black. It's totally unfair.
I think if we're honest about it, there are a lot of people out there across Australia that would prefer politicians not to be paid at all. That's why we're leaving it to independent commission to set those salaries, and I think that's the right thing to do.
That's going.
It's been almost a quarter of a century since there was a review done on the work value of federal MPs. For years, politicians have knocked back recommended pay rises, worried that it's a bad look electorally. Instead, plenty of perks have crept in to compensate, but legislation passed this year meant pay decisions were no longer theirs to make. And those perks, well, they now go out the door.
The Gold Pass disappears. Study tour travel disappears. Severance travel disappears.
Put even more simply, it means this.
You won't again have the appearance of members of Parliament going on overseas study tours to look at winemaking in Latin American countries. You won't again have overseas study tours of members of Parliament travelling to Las Vegas to look at gambling. The important thing here is that we have got rid of this entitlement.
That should also mean an end to headlines like this. The latest, a report in Fairfax newspapers today that Labor MP Craig Thomson took a $24,000 taxpayer-funded overseas study trip and plagiarised much of his report to the government.
The tests that should apply to Craig Thomson and every MP that goes on an overseas trip is whether that trip was value for money for his community, for his constituents, and whether he can eyeball his constituents to say that the trip delivered benefits to the electorate in the longer term.
If you have a loose and open-ended entitlement, and it's an entitlement, then I think you can reasonably expect that its utilisation won't fulfil the highest standards of public administration.
There's no doubt that the Minister is more than happy to see the end of what he labels out-and-out perks that have been open to abuse over many years. He claims the opposition is on side, but the Greens and some independents have slammed the pay rises and the timing.
There's never a good time for a politician to get a pay rise, but this is a particularly bad time considering what is happening in Europe, the potential impact on the Australian economy. But the core issue here is one of transparency and a robustness in the process, and I don't think we have that.
There is never a right time for this. There has to be a time, and it's been a long time coming.
High time too, says the tribunal, to dispense with this perk, on display today by the jubilant minister. Yes, the gold pass for travel by retired MPs really does exist, and it really is gold. But this generation of politicians will never have one.
It became, over the years, a symbol of one of the most inappropriate non-salary, non-taxable measures utilisable by former parliamentarians. This will become a museum piece. The nature and value of it, I think, will be consigned to the history books as it should be.
But those who already have a gold pass won't have to give it up.
Political editor Heather Ewart.